I'm Patty McMahon, a grad student at the University of West Florida, and I'm here at the grave site of Don Ciriaco Lopez and his wife, Doña Feliciana Isidra de Madrid. When you're doing cemetery research, it's important to come and look at the stone kind of before you start the rest of your research, because you can learn a lot about the people that you're researching from the stone itself. For example, even though this stone is laying flat right now, it's likely that it used to be part of an above-ground tomb. And while there is no evidence at this particular site for a tomb, it's really likely that the stone could have drifted or was removed from its original location. And if it was an above-ground tomb, we would know that the family was very wealthy, or wealthy enough to provide such a memorial for them. On a related note, down here we have a stone carver's mark. This particular stone is signed by Fleur Villefroy, who was a marble cutter and sculptor out of New Orleans. And his father was also a stone cutter. Fleur Villefroy was a well-educated free man of color, and he became very wealthy due to his superior skill as a stone carver. He's well-renowned. He has stones in cemeteries from Louisiana to Florida, including at least 5 other stones here in St. Michael's. We can also learn a lot about the people buried here based on the iconography on the stone, as symbolism plays a big part in funerary architecture. So based on this engraving here, obviously we have a Latin cross, meaning that the people buried here were Christians, and we also have a wreath, which is typically the sign for victory. When you combine the cross and the wreath, it refers to the victory of the redemption that's associated with Christ's death and resurrection. This particular wreath is made of 2 different elements. There's an olive branch on this side and an oak branch on this right-hand side. The olive branch is heavily referenced in the Bible, and usually in a funerary context, it's related to the deceased having made their peace with God in this world. And the oak branch is the symbol of strength, and in this case, it is a reference to have the power of the Christian faith. And that's also harkens down to, at the bottom down here, it says, Todas almas sensibles a la gloria. And essentially that's saying that if you have strong faith and a good soul, that's honoring the glory of God. So we can tell right away that these are really strong Christian people. On top of that, when we get to the inscription about the deceased themselves, it's in Spanish, indicating that that was likely their original language. And we know that from the dates on the stone that they were born during the 3rd and final Spanish occupation of Pensacola. That's one way. Now that we know when they were from, we can start looking at different historic records that they would have been mentioned in. The Spanish census is where I found a lot of my information. In the 1820 census, Ciriaco and Feliciana were listed along with their young son. And Ciriaco's profession was that of a gunsmith. He's the only gunsmith listed in that particular census. After that, there are a lot of other different types of resources available. We can find out a lot about them. For example, we know that Ciriaco had an active religious and political life in Pensacola. He's listed on a 1791 holy visit to Pensacola by Señor Don Fray Cirilo de Barcelona, and he's also listed as the godfather of Jose, who was a free mulatto. Politically, Ciriaco Lopez had signed a petition to the United States Congress in 1821 that requested that Pensacola, instead of being annexed to the state of Alabama, would have its own government established. And he is later listed as a grandeur of Pensacola during the territorial period. After that, not too much is known about Ciriaco or Feliciana. We know that their son Ciriaco Jr. died in 1846 at the age of 28, according to a death notice in the Pensacola Gazette. And we know from the stone here that Feliciana died in 1859, 2 years before Ciriaco. And from the 1860 census, it appears that Ciriaco was no longer living on his own, and he was living as a boarder for the last 2 years of his life.